Hey, it's Chris. I got some HomePod Mini tips for you guys. Let's do that, and then we'll get into my long-term review. Obviously, HomePod Minis are great because they let you add more HomePods to your setup for less money, which is great because tip number one, you can tell Siri to play music everywhere. When you do that, you'll hear your audio playing on every HomePod in the house in perfect synchronization. You may have already heard that having multiple HomePods in your house makes for a great intercom system. So you can say something like, Intercom, hey, it's time to eat, which makes it a great way to communicate with everybody in the house, no matter where they are. But tip number two is not to forget that you can use your iPhone or your Apple Watch to activate Intercom. So let's say I'm out on the deck, which is within Wi-Fi range, but there's no HomePod around. Well, I can still use my watch and tell everybody it's time to go get some nitro coffee. So having Siri on the HomePod Mini is part of what sets it apart from a $50 non-smart speaker. And while that's mostly great, Siri doesn't always do a great job of modulating its voice. So sometimes it shouts at you early in the morning or late at night. And that's no good. So what you can do is go into the automations section of the Shortcuts app and then set some custom volume levels for your various HomePods on different days and even at different times. Now, these are Wi-Fi speakers. That's part of what I like about them. What that means is if you have somebody over to your house and they're on your Wi-Fi network, they can actually shoot music or audio to your HomePods, which is either good or bad, depending on the musical taste of your friends. One final tip before we get into my long-term review is that you can ask Siri to play your favorite podcast, it's not all about music, on your HomePods. Now, if you need a suggestion, let me suggest Apple Hype. Every day, Monday through Friday, just in time for lunch, Apple Hype recommends one app, one accessory, a tip, and a news item that has to do with the Apple ecosystem and you getting more out of it in under 2 minutes. So it's short and sweet and straight to the point. Yes, that's a shameless plug since I'm the curator and host, but at least it's useful. All right, let's dig into this long-term review. Now, if you've ever wondered to yourself, is the HomePod Mini really gonna be worth it in your home? Then let me describe how it's become integral in mine so you can kind of see how it's become ingrained in my life. Let's start with the home office. So I've got a stereo pair of black HomePod Minis on my desk, one on each side of my Mac. And right now it's all about the Siri requests and the AirPlay. So Siri requests being like, turn on this light or turn off that scene, and AirPlay from my iPhone or from my iPad. You guys know I have an iPad station set up over in the corner. And it's nice if I'm not wanting to wear headphones to just pipe some music or a podcast over to that stereo pair of HomePod Minis, and it sounds great. Unfortunately, I can't yet use that stereo pair with the Mac because it's gonna be in the next update, hopefully, but I'm on 11.2, so I don't have that functionality yet, and I can't wait till it gets here. The stereo pair in the office gets way louder than I would ever listen to. When I'm in the office, I like to put on some background music, maybe some melancholy piano or Apple's Headspace electronic playlist, maybe some bedtime beats. That's one of the playlists that I listen to when I'm working. And I gotta say, wow, I really like the experience of music with the stereo pair. Obviously, bigger speakers are going to have a punchier, more rich, more enjoyable overall sound when it comes to music in particular. Let's just put it this way. If you like to feel your music and not just hear it, then you're either gonna wanna go with a different kind of speaker altogether, or you're gonna wanna stick with the original HomePod if you're trying to keep it all within the Apple family. That's obvious, but I hope it's just as obvious that there are times when you don't want a huge speaker around, like in your line of sight. Maybe you do want a smaller speaker that's there, especially for the smart capabilities, but that kind of tucks out of the way. That's where the HomePod Mini really shines. When you want a speaker, but you don't need it to be on display. I have a feeling that a lot of people have forgotten about the handoff feature. Like they hear about it and forget about it, don't actually use it, but that's something that's cool in the office. So here you go. This is how you steal something by bringing your phone right next to the speaker. Do you see how seamless that was? It's not necessarily the reason I would buy this, but it's been fun. Something unexpected popped up while I was in the office, and that was using the HomePod Minis for a phone call. That's not something I planned on doing, but it just happened. I realized that I could set the audio when I was on the phone to a HomePod Mini, so there are some use cases in the office. Now we've got a few of these HomePod Minis scattered throughout the house. One of them is in our finished basement. I thought this was such a small speaker that there was no way that it could fill up a big space like a basement. But you know what? It did. My wife and I often listen to an audiobook on the HomePod Mini through Audible while we're working out down in the basement. And this thing gets so loud, again, we don't even come close to turning it up all the way. We can hear all the words spoken very crisply, very cleanly, and loud enough. It goes louder than the workout equipment, which says a lot. Another place that a HomePod Mini has lived in our house is in our bedroom. And that has been useful mostly for the intercom feature. So I briefly mentioned the intercom feature earlier, but honestly, I think it's one of the best uses for these HomePods. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, if you value privacy in things like HomeKit secure video, which is why I bought the security system that I did. And if you want to keep everything within that HomeKit universe and you're not looking at an Echo or you're not looking at a Google speaker, then it's great spreading these throughout the house and being able to communicate with everybody wherever they are. So obviously I'm pretty taken with the HomePod Mini lineup. I like it. I've bought into it pretty heavily, have several, but you know what? This has not replaced our original larger HomePod. That still lives in the living room, and really that covers like the kitchen and the living room and some of the surrounding hallways. An interesting question that I asked myself as I was putting together this video was which HomePod, the original or the Mini, do we end up using the most around the house? And the answer is that original HomePod, but not because it's that original HomePod per se, but it's mostly about the placement of that HomePod out in the living room, kind of like the main area where everyone intersects and people can put on some music or ask about the news for the day. It's just a very used part of the house. And therefore the technology in that part of the house is gonna get used more. So if we didn't have that original HomePod and there was a HomePod Mini there instead, well, guess what? I think then we would use that HomePod Mini more than we would use the other HomePod Minis around the house. It's really the placement more than anything. Now, would I give up that original HomePod for a Mini? Well, no, absolutely not. If I didn't care about saving any money, I would just stick original HomePods in several other rooms. But like I said, there are some places where I just don't want a huge speaker. A nightstand is a great example. I really like this speaker. I'm glad that it came out. I'm glad that I purchased a handful of them. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm not gonna sell them or give them away, get rid of them, because I've become very attached to them. I think the whole family has utilized our whole HomePod ecosystem just daily. Now, when you end up using a product daily, that's a pretty good indicator that there was a reason for that product to exist. It's filling in some kind of a gap. And I definitely feel like the Mini is doing that. It was never supposed to be, I don't think, an alternative really to the original HomePod, more as something that could supplement it. I guess it could be an alternative in that if you just didn't have the budget to get the original, you could get this instead, and it could do basically the same things, just with less of an impact, less oomph. But I'm just saying the larger HomePod and the smaller HomePod, they go together really, really well. All right, so that's it for this video. Really, in all honesty, I would love the support if you guys would go support Apple Hype. It's a podcast, it's a video podcast, so you can listen to it in the car or while you're doing some chores at home, or you could watch it on YouTube, but we make them to be just quick hits of useful, fun information for people in the Apple ecosystem to help you get more out of your favorite products. Just delivered on a silver platter to you guys in under 2 minutes. So check it out. I'm excited about it. The early feedback has been great, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.